So thank you, everyone. We're talking about cross-screen today, and I think it's a really exciting topic. It's also, it means a lot for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. The most important thing, the most relevant thing here is that we're talking about mobile. We now have this device that's always with us, always in our pocket. So cross-screen has evolved into something a little bit more interesting, also a little more challenging as an industry. So we're going to talk a little bit today, try to simplify the cross-screen conversation down to what does it mean behaviorally for consumers, how do we incorporate creative, what is there with technology with cross-screen. So I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves and also just give a little bit of background on how cross-screen is relevant to them in their daily lives as well as their day jobs. So if you guys want to get started, Mark?
Sure. Mark Pavia. I'm at Starcom, run all of design for the company in the US. So I might be committing heresy here, but I think there are three groups. People who refer to it as cross-screen or second screen, aka old people. I think that there's another group that are any screen. It doesn't matter where they're experiencing their content, but mobile certainly is the nexus. It's the connection point to that, and it gives them greater control. And then you've got, frankly, 5 and 10-year-old kids where it's going to be any screen. And you already see the technology coming out now where it doesn't matter where I am, I can just throw my content to a screen. So my living room is always with me. That's how we think about it.
George Hammer with Digitas, and we have a media and creative agency in-house. So we kind of look at it first from an audience perspective and look at the audience and goals, then the moments in which we want to kind of drive change or drive a change in perception or in brand or an activity, then figure out the experiences we need to build in order to get that kind of change we want, and then lastly, think about the screen and media. So that's kind of the last peg in our process. And I think as far as where we're kind of seeing the movement happen in the marketplace right now, a lot of our brands first that entered the second screen or cross-screen place were more performance marketers because they saw that it worked, right? It was a new medium. People were clicking. They could tie a direct result to it. And where we're seeing kind of the market start to move finally is people recognize that it does work for branding as well. And if you want to move top funnel metrics, mobile can achieve that as well as bottom funnel metrics.
Hi. My name is John Hadel. I guess the reason they have me on this panel today is I'm a retired, dinosaur at this point, media buyer who now went over to the dark side of venture capital. And I happen to have investments, in every one of the categories there. And I'm hopefully going to bring the perspective of kind of where we on the investment side are investing in the next series, why we're so ready and willing, if not anxious, for cross-screen to take place. And the summary of that is that, for so many of our companies, we've seen your media agencies just keep fragmenting and fragmenting and fragmenting. And, at the end of the day, cross-screen offers really the opportunity for us to reconsolidate, to actually do reach buying, the most scalable opportunity that really happens for you guys is how do we do one buy, display many. And when we can actually do that, it offers opportunities for us as investors to actually, not fight with the fact that every year something's new. So I'm here to talk a little bit about where I see the vision for that and our hopes and goals.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Malmad. I'm with Mindshare. From a cross-screen perspective, Mark mentioned any screen, and I think that, if you look at what consumers are doing today, and you look at the average consumer's touching and looking at his or her device, at least 150 times per day on average, and then when you look at the millennials, that could be like 300 times per day. Mobile is infused in every single thing we do. Mobile is inherently something that's obviously always on us, but how do we amplify our media and how do we leverage that mobile device to connect a campaign? A lot of times when we talk about mobility and what we do from from a brand perspective, it's, what is that consumer insight? How do we take that consumer insight and then build a program leveraging mobility within that insight? So we don't need to force cross-screen upon people. We just need to naturally let that help consumers engage with our brand in a more natural way.
All right, awesome. So you guys threw a bunch of the topics out there. I'm going to put a little bit of research up here. This may be new to some of you guys, but just to kind of set the scene, 59% of smart TV users are also on their laptop. So, what does this mean? 44% are actually engaging with the program they're watching while they're on their laptop using the TV, and 35% are just emailing, whether they're halfway listening to what's going on with the TV or not, they're doing something else. And then 31% were actually engaging socially in some capacity. A little bit more about what are these guys actually doing on these second devices or third devices or first devices. 44% are, sorry, that was what I just said before. Okay, so 44% are engaging and 35% emailing and then 31% socially. And then on the flip side, if you consider the tablet to be the first screen, 63% are simultaneously watching TV, although it could be very passively. So that being said, from a behavioral standpoint, consumers, how do you guys attempt to look at your consumer and measure their mindset and where they are behaviorally as they're using these different devices?
I think it starts with, and this has come up, especially what you guys do and how we think about it from a media standpoint, but it starts with the experience you're trying to create, and you're going to get better measurement, you're going to get better results if there's a high utility value to the user. So part of the reason why I think, frankly, these numbers and that might seem, I look at that and go, that's terrible, because it means that the experience isn't a great one right now. And there's a great upside for people to create a much better experience, starting with the human being, as opposed to what the marketer wants to jam down someone's throat. And so you're going to get better data, and you can organize your data that way so that you can actually turn this around.
Right. To add that, though, I think we need to evolve our thinking of media a little bit. All of our clients, when they think of mobile, they think, all right, on the go, how am I going to capture this person when they're out and about? And, the research shows that actually 2/3 of the time someone has a phone on them, they're in the home, right? So let's think also about not just delivering a utility or trying to convert someone when they're out and about, but how do I tailor that experience for them when they're at home? What do I just deliver the same ad that's on TV across the mobile phone? We have research that proves, that does work at driving new awareness, but it doesn't really do as effective job at changing brand perceptions, right? Changing purchase intent and for brands that people already know and already aware of. So in that case, we're spending more effort on thinking and tailoring the experiences to the screens and thinking more about mobile, not just as a moment of when someone's out and about, but also as another experience no matter where they are.
I just guess as a parent of someone who's going to be 18 in 18 years, I'm starting to worry about what dinners are going to be like and things like that if I look at these stats. I personally think when you see the watching TV thing, and I'm paid to be very critical, is they're probably not watching the commercial because, come on, right? When the commercial comes on, we all want to then, that's when you reply to the text message or you email your friends or you do other things. So I think that's what's going on more so than any specific media opportunity. I think the interesting thing or opportunity for us is really I'll call it the data trail, the ability to actually sit there and say, okay, we know they're not watching commercials, right? So what are they doing during that 2 or 3 minute break? And how do we as marketers think about being a part of that activity, a part of what they're doing? And that to me is what these stats say, is that this is the challenge for us, is to try to think about those things. And now that we can know what you're doing, and we can control the set-top box, we can control the phone, we can control the tablet, how do we choose to have a relationship with you in the way that you're willing to have a relationship with us? And that's what these stats say to me.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and Jeff, I don't know if you had something to say, but is there a way that you guys, from an agency perspective, have looked at how do you measure what your marketers are doing on these particular devices to tailor that message to them?
Yeah, one of the things too, just to continue on this point quickly, is that when you're watching TV and consumers are home, and working with some companies out there, I met with a company last week, talking about how they tie into Rent-Track data, and based on that Rent-Track data, they're able to identify the household and then know what you're watching on TV. So they could also target your device when you leave that household in order to understand this individual is watching this show, and then you could reinforce a brand sale message within that space. So to me, that's interesting stuff. It's not a utility, it's just a reinforcement of a brand sale message. Additionally, talking about how people are watching and utilizing technology, and you mentioned, looking at the youth and growing up. I see my son. He's sitting there. He takes his iTouch out and he takes pictures of TV shows, and he posts those pictures on his Instagram account, right? So to that point, he's engaged. He doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, he thinks it's fun. I think it's fun because he's watching Wipeout and he's taking pictures of people wiping out and then posting it on Instagram. To that experience, how do we tie a brand into that, and how do we start leveraging that, moving ahead? So I think you're going to start to see a lot more of this generational thing as it relates to how consumers interact. From a technology standpoint, we've done a bunch of campaigns in the past to understand and measure the effectiveness of how that technology works, and does it drive actual sales. A campaign we ran several months ago leveraged the fact that our KPI was driving sales on a destination. You could buy that on a mobile device, you could buy it on a desktop, you could buy it through your tablet, obviously all connected. We served up messages to individuals across all 3 screens, as well as connected TV, so a total of 4 screens. And what we found was, mobile was awesome at driving engagement for a very low cost per engagement type of activity. It worked really well, but nobody really converted from a mobile perspective. Nobody was buying what we were trying to sell them on the mobile device. The engagement was there, but the purchase wasn't. Where we saw the conversion happened on the actual desktop. So the mobility, the different screens, leveraging all 4 screens, and really driving home that message helped drive more product and helped hit our KPIs. Beauty about this campaign was that there was no other marketing in pushing this outside of the campaign we were running, so we were able to get a clean data set, and we were also using different test groups. So we knew one group saw all ads, one group saw only 2 ads on devices and screens. So it really helped reinforce and understand what we're doing in that space. Companies, Mojiva does it, TapAd does it, Drawbridge does it, being able to measure cross-device attribution and understand exactly what's happening.
We've seen this movie before, so to your point, where it used to be that online conversion on the desktop was not nearly what you would get in store, right? So click to brick, and now what we've got is just how you pointed out, is the conversion from mobile to desktop is there. So we've seen this. We've done this before, and what needs to improve is the mobile experience has got to get way better. It's still clunky. It's still siloed. People think of it in a vacuum. Others, more sophisticated, are thinking about it horizontally. The way that that's going to change is when we do what we did 5-10 years ago to improve that conversion.
And I was just going to add that you brought up a great point about people using mobile as a form of research and maybe not converting until the future or so. And I think really it's enabling us to do things we always did, but in different ways. I mean, half of my conversations at the bar are answered and don't happen, right? Because who hit the most home runs? Who's the better player? All I do is now consult this. And so I think that there's a behavior that happened in person that's now shifting to the mobile device, and it's enabling this to be much more powerful as a research tool. Therefore, we should change what we deliver consumers, less about performance and ads and buy now and click now, more about experiences and research and those other things, just allowing the consumers to do what they already do, but in a cool branded way.
I'll ask a question of you all, if I can. You were saying that the mobile phone isn't getting the purchase done, It's happening on the desktop, right? So, but isn't that just part of the path to purchase? I mean, TV says, buy Gillette, don't buy Schick. Then you get in the store and you see ads, Schick's discounting, come on, buy Schick, even though you saw the Gillette ad. Then I'm at shelf, and what do I buy? I mean, it's all part of a process. Does mobile need to be a higher standard? Does it have to happen on mobile?
It could get way better. There's a lot of resistance, if you use an electrical term. There's a lot of resistance in that experience right now. Some people have figured it out. It's easier.
Mark, what would you argue is holding us back most from getting there? I guess, what would it take to improve that experience within mobile? Either we're talking out here to technology vendors, we're talking to publishers, we're talking to content providers. And not to totally put you on the spot, but is it the marketers or is it the content providers and the publishers that need, is it technology?
So I think the oversimplified answer is reduce the number of steps. So this morning, I didn't print out my badge to come here. And I got the email that we all got that said security, there's going to be a big muffin heist at the World Stage Theater, so, get here early. And I hit the little button, which was about that small, that said, download your badge onto your phone. And there were so many steps involved in doing that, I just gave up and thought I could beg my way in with a business card. So it turns out there wasn't, security level clearance here. But just that's a good example of there's just resistance, too many steps. And I get that people are trying, the intent is to try to capture my email address, create a relationship with me, but that's where we're going overboard. And it's not a good experience.
So for maybe the rest of you on the panel, any experiences where you have been able to simplify, whether it be through creative or a technology, to make that mobile experience more effective for the end result, the purchase?
Yeah, I think that, when you look at the overall experience, I do, I'm not saying mobile doesn't drive sales. Mobile drives sales. People do purchase. I spend a lot of money, more money than I should really, on like iTunes all the time, and then buying games and microtransactions, all that stuff. There is that commerce capability built into that, obviously. And then from a user perspective, when it's an easy way for me to transact and purchase, I do much more purchasing. Look at Starbucks. They do a really great job with their application, and I could put my credit card in, and I constantly reload, and I go to Starbucks, and I show them my little my app, and they scan it right there. Somebody mentioned Zappos on the earlier panel. They make it very simple. Like these companies are thinking mobile first in terms of how to make the customer experience work across the screen that they're on, and they need to optimize those screens. So what you're seeing is, number one, consumers are not comfortable purchasing it's a generational thing. So consumers right now my generation is so used to buying on the desktop that it takes time to make that transition over to a mobile device. It's going to happen rapidly, and it's going to happen with the upcoming generation, and people are starting to utilize it now with the new upgrades to iOS 7, the new Androids that are out, and everything. It's going to become more simplified. Just think this has been going on for 6 years. We're at day one of this.
I just would want two things. One, to say that if you think about learning, shopping, buying, right? Obviously, the massive amount of stuff that's happening is the learning. I mean, without a doubt, right? Massive amounts of learning is happening on the phone and the funnel. The shopping, there's a lot of browsing and a lot of information collecting, and perhaps that last moment, the buying. But if you actually think about it online with cookie bombing and all that attribute, I mean, so much of who you think actually pushed a product to you and gets credit for that deal. But wouldn't we think that motion and what you guys are doing with serving ads across all the screens, I mean, aren't you guys really going to be part of the solution, the kind of third-party ad server that can, help us tie all these things together? I mean, aren't you guys really part of that solution?
Yes, well, and I work for Mojiva specifically, but on the motion side, yes, I think ad serving technology for mobile is key. I mean, we've got to get rid of the fragmentation that's out there. We need technology that scales, that invites these measurement tools in, that invites these creative tools in, that can then scale. And it's up to us as an industry to adopt these, leading technologies and then ultimately be able to create those experiences for consumers, for marketers, for content providers across the board.
We've been trying to simplify the process by focusing what we're calling the context graph. It's basically jargon for find the moment that matters most, the one moment that we want to win in, the one moment that's going to change minds or that we want to associate ourselves with. And mobile, as much as there's all these new technologies and everything popping up, still contextual targeting is across screens is one of the main methods to still do the same kind of tactic across. So contextually finding the moments that matter, forgetting about, the purchase funnel is important, but if we had to do one thing, what would we do? And then the other part is, as you look at this, watching TV. So I've been personally, with some of my clients, starting to focus some of our efforts around the content providers that do have multiple screen experiences, that I don't have to worry about as many of the limitations of targeting as mobile, because I can reach the audience that cares about that piece of content across all that vendor screens. And focusing on that and not caring about the screen as much as the content and the experience, and just working with that audience in that kind of mindset. If I know that they're going to be receptive to my message when they're watching Top Gear and I'm a car company, then I can kind of do that and focus on one specific moment.
And how exactly are you guys measuring that? Is that from the content provider or through your? And maybe you don't have an answer for it, but I think that would be a question from the audience: is how would you measure that was effective?
Right. So we're new in evolving our contextual graph POV, but there's all sorts of methods right now, and it all depends on the client's KPI. So if you tell me which KPI, we'll develop a measurement plan to define effectiveness.
We didn't talk a ton about creative. Any insights into how to effectively speak to a consumer? At Mojiva, we have both a mobile network and a tablet network. We work with marketers all the time to decide what is your message appropriately for tablet, and what do you have within a tablet landscape to do for creative versus what that consumer wants to see on a phone and how they will respond on the phone. So any thoughts on what's worked well with creative, or how you've gone about the strategy for creative messaging cross-screen?
From a mobile adaptive standpoint, if you look at the ability to leverage consumers' location, the weather, the time of day, what's going on in the news, being able to push a message that's relevant to them on the device. So if I am, out and about and I'm walking past a store that has a product on sale, and pushing a geolocation message to that consumer saying this product's on sale and I could go to this Target to purchase the product for a sale price, great. I'm not going to get the same message on my desktop, and I'm not going to have that same experience. On my desktop, I could push a different brand sell message, more video, something more optimized to that specific moment that matters. So in essence, I think we're testing and we're trying and we're learning different ways to connect with consumers from a creative standpoint. Time of day, location, being able to effectively communicate that message at the right time, I think is critical. One thing that I just want to point out from a messaging standpoint is not so much the creative itself, but the experience. And one of the experiences I had recently was I was at Target, and I had an airplane to catch. I had to drive my wife to the airport, and it was my airplane was taking off in like 2.5, 3 hours, and we were just running some errands. The fact that I was utilizing my device to book the travel to Indianapolis, and I went on the computer, booked it. Google scanned my email. It knew that I had a trip at 1:30 in the afternoon. It knew the airport I was leaving out of. It knew where I was, and it knew that there was an accident on the highway. And my phone started going nuts, saying, I need to leave now for the airport because I'm going to miss my flight if I don't leave right now. So that was like a really impactful time in terms of like, wow, this is a really powerful thing that it just gave me the heads up that if I don't leave now, I'm going to miss my plane and it's going to be awful. If we take a brand into that, and if we take a brand and we start leveraging the ability for a brand to take stuff that consumers have opted into and promote our brand sell message in a very clear, concise manner to the consumer, if that's a airline, if that's a consumer packaged goods company, if that is an auto, like how do we start to leverage that from a creative standpoint, not just on the device, but also desktop. And I think we're trying to figure that out, and we're working hard to do it. But there's so much opportunity in the space right now that it's just beginning.
There's, I think what you're talking about is empathy, like real-time empathy.
Yeah.
And that it's still a little clunky. I'll give you a search example. If you type into your phone, eye injury, you'll get all the blue links, and you might get a map of an optometrist or a doctor that's close by. And that is the exact same experience that if you type in pizza, you'll get the same links, and you'll get a map and all that. This is just search alone, but you would think if you typed in eye injury, all the text on the page would blow up to make it bigger so you could see it. So, that's empathy. So that's an extreme example, but that's how a brand.
Anyone able to do that?
If a brand were really being contextually relevant and empathetic, that would be a way better experience. I would actually, I would reward them with my attention if they did that.
And just to your creative point, if our clients are performance marketers, they're trying to drive app downloads and such, there's tried and true creative messages, right? Like putting the word free in there always works when not having it and such like that. But if we're talking about brand marketers and we look at this list of what people are actually doing, a lot of these are kind of consuming the cross screen in entertainment or personal time relaxation moments. So when people are in the mindset of being entertained, if brands deliver more entertainment-like moments, we can kind of get that affinity of, hey, you know what, they're giving me what they want. Versus if I'm a brand marketer and someone's watching TV and I'm saying, $1 off a bag of Doritos, it may not be as cool as delivering a great piece of Dorito content that kind of makes people have stronger preference for my brand.
Great. So, John's here from an investment standpoint. We're looking into the future. We've talked a lot about it, but what is next? We haven't talked much about audio content recognition. I know there's a lot of technologies out there that are exploring that and looking at scaling that more. I mean, what would be an ideal way to either incorporate that or look at what cross-screen could truly do for a brand marketer in the future?
So I love the potential of ACR. Here's why. So the second screen environment is very fragmented right now. And what makes it even more fragmented is it's live experiences has a much better value proposition than not live, right? Because the Twitter stream is live, I'm kind of communicating and everything like that. But right now, if I missed the live experience and I fire up a second screen experience, I missed all those conversations and everything. So what if ACR can recognize that I'm listening to a replay of a show and load up gradually all the tweets that came through that night as they occurred, so you got to experience it live. So ways that ACR can make the value proposition of second screen stronger get me excited.
Yeah, well, two things. One, I want to say thank you to the panelists, because it just hit me while I was sitting on here that cross-screen is not just about a media opportunity, it's also a CRM opportunity. The ability to actually deliver and put, do things. So it hadn't clicked on me before, so thank you. That's helpful.
So thank you.
And the second thing is, ACR, look, I think it's a navigation play, right? The ability for ACR to work helps me have my phone do certain things, so it's not as clunky and as difficult to get to where I want to go, and hopefully over time understand where I want to go based on the fact that you know all these things about me. I will scare the pants off people for one moment that if you, it takes a hacker about 3 minutes to hack into your phone and turn on your microphone and listen to what you're saying. So there's good and bad about ACR and all sorts of stuff. You just don't know who's listening. So I've seen guys out of Israel do it in about 3 minutes and scare the heck out of me. So
Yeah.
I think what's next, and it's a $1 billion answer, is the unified ID cookie lists, because right now we got a bunch of digital ghosts right now because mobile isn't measured great and everybody claims that they can, and we're starting to see those people reveal themselves. What I do on my desktop might not necessarily be as apparent as what I do on my mobile phone. So a unified ID so that you can get that attribution all the way through the sale. There are a lot of smart companies thinking about that. And if I can actually tell my client that you do these 3 things, which would include mobile, your sales are going to go up, and I feel confident that I'm talking to a real person, they're going to invest. They're going to put behind that. And money breeds innovation and scale. So once that gets figured out, and I know that it's being figured out, that will be a game changer.
Yeah, I think too the audio content recognition and there's the whole in-store component to it as well. So if I walked into a store and I have an app on my device and that app is connected to a company like Sonic Notify that does a lot of the ambient background noise, it sends me a push notification that I've opted in for. To me, it's not so much cross-screen, but it's like cross-media because it's tying into the actual sound that's going on in the store. So if there's that in-store radio that's playing, you're getting that passively distributed to your device, and then you're getting that push notification if you've opted in. And I feel that once you opt in and once you are raising your hand saying, this is something that interests me specifically from a shopping perspective, I think that's really powerful and helps drive sales.
So, Carrie, we have about 4 minutes left for questions. So let's open it up. Let's open it up to the audience for some question and answers.
No, are you up at the top?
No, I'm hiding. I'm over here. I'm to your right.
Oh, you're right there. Sorry. All right, great.
Wake it up,
Yeah,
please.
let's open up to questions.
So does anybody have any questions for the panel?
Can't see anything.
Put your hand up and I will bring the microphone to you.
There's got to be questions.
Question over here on the other side of the camera. Give me a second. Chicka, 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 choo, choo.
Hi, I'm Lee. I run a media company and used to work in TV. So now I see the change from TV to internet, now to mobile. But the advertisements still catching up. Like the majority of revenue still goes through TV and then internet and mobile. How do you see, when and how soon do you think that in terms of revenue, advertising will catch up, that maybe mobile will become the number 1 and TV revenue will maybe number 3?
It's a great question.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think 2 years ago, there was certainly a lot of interest, and you've got the new front, and everybody's saying that all this content is going to be online. Hey, quiet down out there. The same thing is happening with mobile. Really what's going to drive it is share. You've got the television. I liken the television industry as a slower version of what happened in newspaper. Because at the newspaper companies, they were all just saying, oh, well, yeah, we're going to do this internet thing, but it's really about the newspaper and printing it and getting it out the door. And they really missed the boat. We can see what happened in newspaper as a result of that. You still see that same inertia at large TV companies where they still say it's about the screen, and they're not wrong in that there are a lot of screens out there, but when you add up all the computers and all the TV screens, it pales in comparison to the mobile devices. So what's going to happen is if clients start really shifting share away from the television or demanding that it really has a cross-screen they have a cross-screen solution, it's not going to happen until the money moves.
Yeah, I would also say, too, that the more we're able to tie together the screens and attribute what is happening on the mobile device to what they might have seen on the television or seen on the PC, the more the budgets will spread evenly because that usage on the phone and that usage on the tablet devices is there. And I think what a lot of the technology companies are doing is they're able to attribute that effectiveness across the board. And kind of, Mark, you said it in the beginning, but looking at it as not multi-screen, but the broader message, we're going to start to see the ability to invest further into the mobile platforms.
I spent so much time looking at numbers. You have a $140 billion ad market, of which 20 some odd billion is in digital display and 20 billion is in search. I mean, a third of the market already is in digital-like stuff, so I actually don't agree with your question. I think your question's the wrong question because a third of the market's already in digital. And if you look at the rate of growth of those numbers, it'll be 50% in 5 more. I mean, I think it's already happened. I think we're all saying, because there's so many startups trying to get so much money, that what you tend to do is focus on the negative. I mean, Google has 2 or 3 billion running already in mobile thread, and that's one company. So the issue is it's how fast it's growing. And if you actually take a look at the numbers of YouTube, more and more, on a cost per view basis, you're better off buying YouTube on mobile than you are on desktop. You'll get more clearage, right? And people are watching it. So, it's actually, the question is what are going to be the big winners that go from 40 billion to 50 to 60? TV's still going to be half the market, a third or 40% of the market. It's not going to be. It's still an important place we spend a lot of our time.
And unfortunately, I have to cut you off because we are out of time. But